Hello. Is this on? Cannot tell. Mm, Hello. Welcome to my live video, guys. Okay, so I don't usually go live. I think this is like the third time ever in my life I've gone live. Because TBH makes me super nervous and gives me anxiety because usually I record videos um, like ahead of time, and then I can edit them and review them in case I make a mistake or say something stupid. But I just felt very strongly for some reason that this video needed to be live. So I'm like, okay, whatever you say in your voice. Um, Anyways, thank you for coming. Welcome. Today I am celebrating the second anniversary of my Identity Day. What is that? Well, thanks for asking. So exactly 1 year ago, October 7, 2019, I did this really kind of off the wall, odd thing. Um, so let me explain. I I wanted to celebrate the fact that I had been transformed and changed into a completely different person. I had an identity transplant, if you will. And so I had this great idea. I was like, okay, I'm gonna invite all my friends, because I don't really live near family. I lived in Tennessee, and most of my family all lived in Maryland. But anyways, I'm gonna invite all my friends. I'm not gonna tell them what they're coming for, but they're gonna come over. There's gonna be an event, and if I tell them what it is, they're not gonna want to come, so I'm not gonna tell them. So I invite all my friends over, and everyone meets outside, and we're standing in the front yard, and everyone's like, "So, are we like gonna go in the house or what?" And I'm like, there's like this awkward like hole in the ground, and I'm wearing like all black, and everyone's like, "Are we at a funeral?" And I'm like, yes, we are. And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "We are celebrating the death and passing of the old Grace." And I passed out little pamphlets or programs because I'm extra and I made programs for my event. I'll just let you see it. This was the cover that I made, and it has an itinerary in the back. And I had my friend read a eulogy for me for my old identity. And you know what? Actually, let me just read it because, well, I think it's funny. So if you don't think it's funny, just pretend to laugh. Well, I can't see you, so it's fine. Oh, hi, Nestles. Hi. All right, so my friend Chanti read the eulogy as I stood there, like still in all black, like a dead person. She said, "Brothers and sisters, we gather here today to celebrate the death and passing of the old Grace. We come together in joy, acknowledging the loss of her life. I want to thank you for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chanti, and I have been a close friend of the deceased for many years." Pause. So you can probably imagine how confused everyone is. They're just standing there like, what in the world did we get invited to, right? Anyways, I've been a close friend of the deceased for many years. Now that she is gone, I can honestly say that I will not miss her. In life, she was miserable, exhausted, stressed out, emotionally unstable, and confused about who she was. She lived a painful and broken life and was boy crazy for many years, jumping from guy to guy to find value and meaning. I remember many times when we were roommates in college that the old Grace would come into the dorm room crying and swearing that she was through with men forever and she never wanted to date ever again, only to be starry-eyed, head over heels, and feeling all the oozly woozlies for the next emotionally toxic boy less than a week later. Pretty true. It was obvious to all who knew her that she was starving for love and looking for it in all the wrong places. Not only was the old Grace on the fast track for relational train wrecks, but she was also a horrible witness to the gospel by claiming a form of godliness but denying its power. Ugh. She claimed to believe in God, but what she believed was only a partial gospel, a neutered gospel, with as much power to save as a defibrillator without a power source. She called herself a Christian, but identified as a sinner instead of a daughter, and so her life reflected what she believed. She was chained to her shame, to her past, her habits and behavior, thinking that was who she truly was. She knew that God had forgiven her, but thought it was her job to free herself through willpower and effort. By the grace of God, the old Grace's life was cut short by supernatural causes when God showed up mightily and confronted her with truth. He told her that she has exhausted herself by striving to be good and to bring about her own sanctification when he has already made her good and has already sanctified her through his blood. The old Grace took her last earthly breath when she realized she was literally a new creation in Christ. The old has passed away, the new has come. So I actually wrote the eulogy. My friend didn't throw me under the bus like that. I wrote it and then she read it. So it'd be kind of messed up if she wrote all that. But anyways, so my friends were like starting to kind of get it. They're like, okay, hi honey, this is Wendy. I'm making a video right now. Mommy can't play. I'm so sorry. Um, so this is why I don't like to do live things, because this happens and then I forget what I'm saying. Yeah, so we literally like had a funeral and like buried like different things that represented my old life and what have you. And then we went inside and like had a marriage ceremony of like me to Jesus. And um probably half of you on the other end watching this is probably thinking, okay, like that's super weird. And I'm like, yeah, it really was. But like I was just super excited and like I just wanted to express like in a big way like the drastic change that had come over my life. So as you heard from like the eulogy, what I was like before, like I'm just like completely different now. So in order to kind of explain to my friends like what had happened, because I didn't really know, some people that came like didn't know my story or my past or like any of that. So I wrote a little explanation about the identity day and like what happened and why we're all gathered here today. And so I guess I'll just read that too, because you probably don't know it either. So, hi, honeys, you go play outside. Out. Okay. Raw. Explanation of Identity Day. So you may be wondering what this is all about and what the meaning of this is and why we are meeting today. So some of you may know my story, some of you may not. I've been a Christian all my life, but despite that, my identity was never rooted in Christ, but rather in myself, my behavior, and through other people. Specifically, I let the opinions of men determine my worth, and I allowed my track record of doing right to justify me. One example of this was how I had placed such a huge amount of my identity, in my purity. I had decided from a very young age that sexual purity was very important to me, and I wanted to wait to have sex until marriage. Not hashtag. Side note, wow, I can't. Side note, my parents were not like, I didn't have like those typical like Christian parents that were like, you must wait to have sex. Like they weren't like beating me over the head with it at all. It was completely like my decision that I came to on my own. So it was actually really important to me and like something that was just on my heart since I was like 11, 12, something like that. Where am I? But when I was in high school, I started developing feelings for one of my teachers. He had been a mentor to me for many years, and we had started getting closer and closer, spending more and more time together. By my senior year, there was a noticeable change in the dynamics of our relationship. One day, he asked me if I had feelings for him, which I was super embarrassed about because who wants to admit that they have a crush on their teacher? No one. And then, to my complete and utter shock, he confessed that he had feelings for me too. I couldn't have been more shocked and excited if the actor who had played Aquaman had expressed his undying love, because he is beautiful. I fell so hard in love with him, Mr. Teacher Man, that he had become my everything. He had taken the place in my heart that only God was supposed to fill. Since we had talked about literally everything in my life, like, all 18 years of it, he knew that I wanted to wait until I was married to have sex. But I also knew that I was an inexperienced high school girl and he was a 34-year-old grown man with lots of experience. He had been taking off bras longer than I had been putting them on. I didn't write that. That just kind of came to my mind. I figured sorry. I figured it was more of a matter of when it would happen rather than a matter of if. I was terrified of losing him because I had made him my source of identity, worth, value, and meaning and significance in life, and I couldn't bear for him to think of me as just a little girl and realize the truth of what I already felt inside, that I just wasn't good enough for him and that he would leave. And so I quickly gave up what I believed, purity, for what I felt, and sacrificed my morals on the altar of the relationship. So I lost my virginity to him on January 7, 2011. Remember that, that's important. And found out I was pregnant a few weeks later. That's my luck, first time pregnant. Ugh. After that, I felt like a planet knocked out of orbit, spinning aimlessly through space. I did not know who I was anymore. I had placed so much of my identity in my purity, and now that it was gone, I felt utterly destroyed, unredeemable, like I had committed the unpardonable sin. And let me just tell you, that was like the worst depression of my entire life, like the utter despair. Like I don't even know how I got out of that deep pit of despair. That's a Princess Bride reference for all of those nerds out there. Anyways, Mr. Teacher Man said if I kept the baby that he could lose his job and go to jail. He promised me that if I did this one thing for him, hashtag abortion, that when I graduated high school, we would get married and he would give me as many children as I wanted to make up for this one. And so even though I believed abortion was terribly wrong, the idea of losing him was worse. And so for the second time, I sacrificed what I believed for what I felt. But that's what happens when you let anything but Christ tell you who you are. You end up doing things you never thought you would do. And I continued on that downward spiral for many years. Even after I received emotional healing from the abortion, I was still trying to find my identity in a relationship with a man. And even though I didn't want to, I found myself repeating the same mistakes over and over again in relationships. That's a nice euphemism for having sex. With men, because I still needed their affirmation to fulfill my sense of value. Every time I would try by my own willpower to make good Christian choices, aka keeping your, legs together. Sorry, my sass is just coming out right now. I need to be more serious. Every time I would try by my own willpower to make good Christian choices, the devil's voice would confront me and whisper in my ear, "Why are you trying so hard? It's not like you're pure anyway. What does it even matter? What difference does one more time make? It's not like you're a virgin or anything." I make his voice sound stupid because he is stupid. And also, side note, even then, after all that, purity was still super important to me, and I still, tried really, really hard not to do it, because, I still felt, even after all of that, that it was a huge part of who I was, and I tried so hard, but, like I said, the stupid voice of the devil was just kept whispering in my ear saying, what difference does it make? You're not pure anyways, and so I believed it. And I listened to the devil's voice and believed it for many years until God came and rescued me from darkness with truth. He woke me up and opened my eyes to the power of the gospel. That it's not just about being forgiven for what I've done. That's what most people think the gospel is. It's just God forgives you of your sins. But about being completely transformed and that you're not the same person anymore. When I accepted Jesus into my life, he had made me brand new. And all I had to do was just believe it. Jesus had adopted me into his family, but I was still identifying as an orphan, trying to earn and gain his attention to win his approval. But how can you earn something that you already have? I can't please God by trying to please him. What pleases him is knowing that he's already pleased. When I finally learned this truth, it was like I had heard the gospel for the first time. Because I did hear the gospel for the first time. That's full gospel. For the first time, I felt like the chains of shame falling off of me and I was free. We say that the truth will set us free, so if we don't feel free, then maybe we need to reevaluate the truth that we believe. I have been single for over a year now. That was a year ago, so now it's over 2 years. And I've never felt more fulfilled and whole ever before in my life. A few weeks ago, last year, so a year and some change ago, I was flipping through my journal and came across a diary entry that caught my attention. I read it and I was overwhelmed with just how far that God had brought me. I recorded in my diary that the last time that I had had sex was October 7, 2018, and I immediately started bawling my eyes out. We're almost done, sorry. Bear with me. You see, I lost my virginity and became pregnant on January 7, 2011. I said that date was important, remember. 9 months later, do the math, would have been my due date for my child on October 7. But obviously that didn't happen because of the abortion. And so October 7 became a day of shame, of guilt, regret, brokenness, and an identity of condemnation. Let me tell you, I thought that losing my virginity and losing the purity was terrible, but then after that, having the abortion was even worse because I felt like a murderer and like a shedder. Is that a word? A shedder of innocent blood. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. Anyways, so October 7 was the day like my child was supposed to be born, and so that day just like haunted me for so long. Anyways, but God is so good and so wonderful and so kind that He took that specific day, October 7, that used to represent sorrow, shame, and condemnation, and He redeemed it. October 7 now represents joy, purity, and an identity of transformation in Christ. And today I am celebrating not 1 year, last year was 1 year, 2 years of spiritual, emotional, and sexual restoration. And I'm not ever looking back. It's not that my willpower got stronger or that I've gotten better at resisting or that I read a nice book called 5 Steps to Purity. I just believed what Jesus said about me instead of what I felt about myself. And now I just rest in that knowledge. Before I was fighting and striving for purity, and later I realized that I was fighting from purity. So two different mindsets: striving for what you don't have versus walking and living from what you already do have. My desires have been completely changed, and I don't even struggle with that temptation at all. And that is why I am celebrating with you guys today as a testament of God's amazing and redeeming power to make you His masterpiece, a new creation, and that there is nothing in this world that He cannot heal and restore. What the devil meant for harm, God has destined for good. October 7 will never again cause me to identify as a dirty, worthless sinner. Instead, I will make October 7 a holiday and call it Identity Day, to honor the one who can take the one thing in your life that represents your greatest sorrow, shame, and pain and turn it into something beautiful and something to celebrate. I have died to the law of sin and shame, and now I live in the newness of Christ, and I am so happy and grateful that you have all come to share this happy celebration of my death and union with Jesus. All of you people here with me on the internet. So, that was my program that I read. Now, I just want to brag on God a little bit here because it hit me later. Actually, this past year, I was thinking about my life, introspecting, and I realized that something that's really important to me is looking for patterns and meanings. I'm always looking for well, what does this mean? What does this mean? Looking for themes and anyways. So I'm a nerd like that. So stuff like prophecy and looking at Daniel and Revelation, the numbers and stuff, it's I nerd out over that stuff. So God was really showing off in my life to show me not only did He redeem me from all that, but He had been there the entire time, and that He was gonna prove that He had everything under control, and that He literally is for me, and that He can do anything. So because I'm a super nerd, I made a timeline. I'm going to share it with you because it's #amazing. So from my story, that children, hush. Oh goodness. Hey, stop barking. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. Hey, come here. Children, come here. Inside. Yeah. Oh, so sorry. That was so stressful. Okay, I'm back. Okay. This is why I don't do live videos. Okay, so we know from my story that January 7, 2011 was the day I lost my virginity. And then October 7, which way is it? October 7, 2011, that same year, was supposed to be when my child was supposed to be born. But there's other things, other sevens, God's amazing, and He, my number is 7 between me and God, and He's anyways, let me not get ahead of myself. Whew, okay. The first time I was baptized was in July of 2005. I was 13, I think. So what's cool about July is that that's the 7th month of the year, 2005, right? That's when I was yes, Jesus, I want to ask you into my heart and accept forgiveness, because that's all I thought the gospel was just forgiveness, right? Anyways, then this happened. This is just in chronological order, and the spacings are not to scale. So obviously from here to here is a lot shorter than from here to here, but it's the same spacing, but just ignore that. Anyways, so the next date on my little timeline of events here is October 7, 2018. Now, I didn't mention that in my story because I'm about to mention it now. So, October 7, 2018 was a very important day because, so I lost my virginity on January 7, 2011 to my teacher, and I could kind of forgive myself for that because, you know, he was 34 and I was like in high school, and there was obviously a power dynamic there, and like, I wouldn't have done it if it was like anybody else, I don't think. But like, I was so used to, I'm with a teacher, you're so used to like asking permission to go to the bathroom, right? Like, you can't even go to the bathroom without permission. So, like, I didn't really feel like I had a voice, and I didn't really feel like I could say no, really. Like, he didn't rape me in the sense that, like, you know, but, like, it was mutual, but, like, there was definitely a power imbalance there. But anyways, so I could kind of forgive myself for that, right? And I was like, okay, I made a vow, like, it's never gonna happen again, you know, I'm never gonna go there ever again. But October 7, 2018, there's a October 7, 2018, I got a new boyfriend, who was closer to my age. He was still a little bit older, but it was, you know, he wasn't my teacher. He was like just a regular boy. And I made the intentional decision to go and have sex with him, right? We had been whoa! Oh my gosh, we had been dating for 7 months. That's another 7. Ugh, we had been dating for 7 months. Sorry, that's amazing. And it took 7 months, then we had sex on 2018. So that became like the day that it was like intentional, right? So now let's look at July of 2019. That is when I was rebaptized under the full gospel, where I understood that the gospel wasn't just forgiveness, but it was also transformation. So like I literally have become a new creation. I wasn't just the same person that had been forgiven, but I'm literally like a new creature. And so that was 2019. And you'll notice that from 2005 to 2019, if you're not good at math, I'll give you a second to count, is 14 years, right? That's 2 sets of 7. And the reason why that blows my mind is because there's 2 sets, or like 2 halves of the gospel, right? The first time I was baptized, I understood the first half, which was forgiveness, which is very important. The second half of the gospel, I understood like the transformation aspect. So the 2 halves of the gospel, 2 sets of 7, is 14 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. The other thing you'll notice is that wait, did I lie? Shoot. Oh my gosh, I ruined this whole thing. It wasn't October 7, 2018 that I'm such an idiot. I'm so sorry. That wasn't the first time that I had sex with my boyfriend like after my teacher. That was in 2011 because I'm an idiot and this is why I don't do live videos. October 7, 2018 was the last time that I had sex, which was like 2 years ago. And that was also very intentional because with all the, you know, in my other relationships, like I didn't want to, like I just kind of felt pressured into it, or I felt like I didn't really have a choice. And like if I didn't, then anyways, it was all dumb. I never wanted to, but this time with the first boy after my teacher was very much intentional, and it just happened to be on the same day that was supposed to be my due date, which I didn't realize at the time. I just realized it after the fact. I was looking through my diary because I'm very like nerdy and keep track of like I keep track of like dates and stuff. And like anyways. So then October 7, 2018 was the last time, which was very intentional. And so you'll notice it's very interesting from 2011 to 2018, the same date, October 7, right? That's super crazy, but it's also 7 years apart. Like the first intentional and the last intentional time was both 7 years apart. And I'm like, whoa, that's nuts. And then also, you'll notice from 2011, the first time that I had the sex with the teacher, not just sex, the sex, with the teacher, to the last time is 7 years, right? So I was living in shame and like bondage to like that false identity that I had created, and like this identity of shame and condemnation and like dirtiness and like impurity for 7 years. And then God released me, right? And so then in 2019, when I heard the gospel for the first time, like the real actual gospel, I heard it from my friend. And my friend, sorry, this is where I get a little bit ridiculous, but he was 34 when he told me the gospel, and 3 plus 4 is 7. and I heard the gospel when I was 27 years old in my 27th year of life. And my friend he still is. He's 7 years older than me. So I'm just like, okay, God, like now you're just showing off, like to get my attention and make me realize like how freaking amazing he is. It's just, Anyways, so I think that's the whole thing. Oh, the other thing is, and this is just an extra, if some of you know, right now I'm in California at Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. Um, and this wasn't planned or intentional, but I was looking at the calendar today and I realized that I left Tennessee and like came here to California, like where I felt God calling me on September 7th. Like I was like, okay, wow, like I'm following where God's hearing, and I really feel like He's gonna like just radically like transform my identity in Him, like even further, because I still feel like there's so many more layers to like what else there is in intimacy with Him. So I've been here exactly 1 month. It is October 7th today. I've been here since I left Tennessee September 7th, which marked like obedience of like leaving behind all the stuff there to come here. And anyways, I just was like, wow, there's just so many sevens right now. And so that's like a special number between me and God. Every time I see a seven, I'm reminded of like his providence and like his hand in my life. And not only that, this is the last one. This is the last seven, I promise. So, okay. So some of you guys know like the seventh day of the week is Saturday or Sabbath, right? That's why the Jews, had Sabbath and whatever on the seventh day. Just like when God made the world, He rested on the seventh day from His work or whatever. Anyways, so at the beginning of this year in January, some people do New Year's resolutions, and I was about to do that, and then God was like, "No, instead of a New Year's resolution, I want to give you a word for the year." And I was like, "Okay." And so He was like, "Your word for this year is going to be rest." And I was like, "Rest? Like, what in the world? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? That's not something you do. That's like the opposite of doing. You just lay there." And like I was like, all right. And like basically I figured it out. Like it was like I had been striving and working so hard to achieve purity and like my identity when He's like, no, I've already given you that. So just rest and receive it. Right. And then when I realized like the seventh day, another seven, is about rest, I was just like, okay, like there are no coincidences. Like God is just so freaking amazing. And I'm just like, oh man, I have to like share this to everyone. Anyways, I'm gonna stop now because I have nothing else to say. And oh my gosh, this is 27 minutes long. Okay, I'm gonna stop. All right, goodbye guys. I love you.